The former NFL star admits to and felony sexual battery.
NFL legends spent decades building their names into history, but for some of them, their sons tore it all down in just a few years.
And as I look at my son here, he's 5 years old right now, sitting right.
From Kellen Winslow, too, whose crimes dragged a Hall of Fame surname into disgrace.
You give me 12 and I can go home to my family as soon as possible, Your Honor.
To Todd Marinovich, whose downfall shattered his father's life's work. These are the NFL legend's sons who ruined their father's legacies. Kellen Winslow, too. Kellen Winslow, too, was once seen as the natural continuation of one of the most respected bloodlines in NFL history. Born into football royalty, he entered the sport with enormous expectations and every possible advantage. At the University of Miami, Winslow, too, looked like a future superstar. He was dominant, athletic, and aggressive, earning unanimous All-American honors and helping the Hurricanes win a national championship. By the time he declared for the 2004 NFL Draft, he was widely viewed as the best tight end in college football and a can't-miss prospect. The Cleveland Browns selected him 6th overall, believing they were getting a franchise cornerstone who could carry a legendary name forward. His NFL career, however, never fully matched the hype. Injuries slowed his development early, most notably a serious motorcycle accident that disrupted his momentum. While he managed a Pro Bowl season in 2007 and stayed in the league for several years, Winslow, too, never became a dominant player at his position. He bounced between teams, producing flashes of talent, but never consistency, never leadership, and never the kind of impact expected from both his draft status and his surname. Beginning in the mid-2010s, Winslow, too's life unraveled catastrophically. He was arrested multiple times on serious charges, including burglary, kidnapping, and assault.
Former football star, now a convicted.
In 2019, he was convicted of battery, and later pleaded guilty to additional offenses as part of a plea deal. He received a lengthy prison sentence and remains incarcerated, permanently severing his ties to football and public respect. The weight of that collapse becomes clearer when contrasted with his father, Kellen Winslow Sr. He was not just a great tight end, he was a revolutionary one. Drafted by the San Diego Chargers in 1979, he became the centerpiece of Don Coryell's high-powered offense and fundamentally changed how the position was played. He was a 3-time first-team All-Pro, a 5-time Pro Bowler, and delivered legendary performances, including his iconic role in the 1981 Epic in Miami. In the end, Kellen Winslow, too, didn't simply fail to live up to his father's greatness. Through criminal actions and public disgrace, he dragged one of the NFL's most respected surnames into infamy, forever altering how the Winslow legacy is remembered. Todd Marinovich. Todd Marinovich was groomed from birth to be football's ultimate prodigy. His father, Marv, believed he could engineer the perfect quarterback, controlling every aspect of Todd's life, from diet and exercise to sleep and education. By the time he reached high school, Todd dominated Orange County football, breaking records and earning national attention. Sports Illustrated called him America's first test tube athlete, a quarterback raised on a rigid schedule of workouts, classical music, and strict nutrition. Every push-up, every drill, every film study was designed to create an NFL superstar. At USC, Marinovich excelled, demonstrating precision passing and athletic skill that promised a long, legendary career. By the 1991 NFL Draft, he was a first-round pick for the Los Angeles Raiders, carrying the weight of a father's obsession and the hopes of a nation. But the promise unraveled quickly. Despite his physical gifts, Todd's mental and emotional development had been stunted by his upbringing. Once in the NFL, he struggled with independence and coping with pressure. Drug abuse began to dominate his life. Repeated arrests, rehab stints, and probation violations became public headlines. By the mid-2000s, Marinovich was cycling through jail, rehab, and odd jobs. Attempts to return to football or find stability failed. Even his work in art and coaching could not overcome the reputation he had built as a cautionary tale of wasted talent. On the other hand, Marv Marinovich's career and influence stand in stark contrast. A USC lineman and AFL player, he became a pioneering strength and conditioning coach, introducing Eastern Bloc training methods to professional athletes. He founded Marinovich Training Systems, applying innovative methods to his children and other athletes, creating one of the most disciplined athletic programs in history. Still, Todd's failure was not just a personal downfall. It permanently tarnished his father's vision. Anthony Dorsett. Anthony Dorsett Jr. entered football carrying one of the heaviest surnames in the sport. As the son of Tony Dorsett, expectations followed him from the moment he stepped onto a field. He grew up around elite football culture and chose the same college path as his father, enrolling at the University of Pittsburgh. Unlike Tony, who dominated immediately, Anthony carved out a quieter role as a defensive back. He was a solid, functional college player, appearing in more than 40 games and showing enough discipline and athleticism to reach the professional level, but never commanding attention or redefining his position. Selected in the 6th round of the 1996 NFL Draft by the Houston Oilers, Dorsett Jr. began a professional career that was respectable but unremarkable. He spent several seasons in the league, including time with the Titans and Raiders, and even started in 2 Super Bowls, Super Bowl 34 with Tennessee and Super Bowl 37 with Oakland. On paper, those appearances look impressive. In reality, he was a role player rather than a difference maker. He never became a Pro Bowler, never earned All-Pro recognition, and never emerged as a player teams built around. His later stints in the CFL and UFL reinforced the same pattern: capable, durable, but replaceable. That contrast becomes stark when measured against his father. Tony Dorsett wasn't just great, he was historically elite. A Heisman Trophy winner at Pitt, a national champion, and the 2nd overall pick in the 1977 NFL Draft, Tony exploded into the NFL as a generational talent. He won Super Bowl 12 as a rookie, rushed for over 12,000 yards, made multiple Pro Bowls, earned All-Pro honors, and delivered one of the most iconic plays in league history with his 99-yard touchdown run. He became one of the few players ever to win a Heisman, a Super Bowl, and earn induction into both the College and Pro Football Hall of Fame. Anthony Dorsett Jr. didn't disgrace the Dorsett name through scandal or controversy. Instead, he diluted it through mediocrity. Billy Cannon Jr. Billy Cannon Jr. entered football carrying one of the most mythic names in college and professional football history. As the son of Billy Cannon Sr., expectations followed him everywhere. Cannon Jr. was an elite all-around athlete at Broadmoor High School, starring in multiple sports and earning All-American honors in football. On Halloween night in 1979, he even mirrored his father's most famous moment, returning a punt 89 yards for a touchdown exactly 20 years after his father's legendary return for LSU. It felt symbolic, as if destiny itself was pushing him toward greatness. Instead of following his father to LSU, Cannon Jr. chose Texas A&M, a decision that already placed him in contrast with the legacy he inherited. At A&M, he became a versatile and reliable defensive player, moving between positions in the secondary and linebacker core. He was productive, durable, and respected, but never dominant. Still, the pedigree mattered. In the 1984 NFL Draft, the Dallas Cowboys selected him in the 1st round, betting that talent, bloodline, and athleticism would combine into a long-term defensive cornerstone. That future ended almost as soon as it began. Just 8 games into his rookie season, Cannon Jr. suffered a catastrophic injury when a congenital spinal condition was aggravated during a tackle. He experienced temporary paralysis and was forced to retire immediately to avoid permanent damage. His NFL career ended before it truly started. Legal disputes with the Cowboys followed, but his playing days were over at age 22. The contrast with his father could not be sharper. Billy Cannon Sr. was one of the most celebrated players of his era. At LSU, he won the Heisman Trophy, led a national championship team, and produced one of the most iconic plays in college football history. As a professional, he was a dominant force in the AFL, a league MVP, a championship winner, and a revolutionary offensive weapon. Even later legal troubles failed to erase his standing as a Louisiana sports legend, with statues, retired jerseys, and enduring reverence preserving his legacy. So, Billy Cannon Jr. didn't disgrace the family name through scandal or poor choices. Instead, his legacy faded through absence. Jarrett Payton. Jarrett Payton was born into one of the most sacred bloodlines in NFL history. As the son of Walter Payton, Sweetness himself, he grew up under the shadow of a name synonymous with greatness, durability, and relentless excellence. From an early age, Jarrett was surrounded by football royalty and expectations that few players ever face. A gifted all-around athlete, he starred in high school football and earned national recognition as one of the top prospects in the country. When he committed to the University of Miami, a powerhouse program loaded with NFL talent, it felt like the first step toward continuing the Payton legacy. At Miami, however, Jarrett's career never took off the way many expected. He flashed athleticism and versatility, but struggled to carve out a defining role in a crowded backfield. While he finished his college career with a productive senior season and even earned MVP honors in the Orange Bowl, he was never the focal point of the offense or a dominant presence. Unlike his father, who overwhelmed defenses with consistency and physical authority, Jarrett was solid but unspectacular. By the time he entered the NFL, he was no longer viewed as a future star, but as a depth option fighting for a roster spot. That reality followed him into the professional ranks. Jarrett entered the NFL as an undrafted free agent with the Tennessee Titans, a stark contrast to his father's status as a top 4 overall pick. He spent time in NFL Europe, the CFL, and smaller professional leagues, bouncing between teams and countries in search of stability. While he enjoyed brief moments of success, including a strong season in NFL Europe and flashes in the CFL, he never established himself as a true NFL contributor. The contrast with his father is unavoidable. Walter Payton wasn't just great, he was timeless. A league MVP, Super Bowl champion, 9-time Pro Bowler, and longtime NFL rushing king, he embodied excellence on and off the field. So, Jarrett Payton didn't disgrace the Payton legacy through scandal. Instead, he diluted it through unmet expectations. Casey Matthews. Casey Matthews entered football carrying one of the most powerful surnames the NFL has ever known. As a member of the legendary Matthews family, he wasn't just the son of a former NFL player, he was part of a multi-generation dynasty. His father, Clay Matthews Jr., enjoyed a long, productive NFL career. His uncle Bruce Matthews is a Hall of Famer, and his brother Clay Matthews III became a Defensive Player of the Year. With that kind of lineage, expectations followed Casey everywhere he went. At Oaks Christian High School, Matthews looked the part. He piled up tackles, sacks, and awards, anchoring an undefeated state championship team and earning national attention. When he chose Oregon, a rising powerhouse, it felt like another Matthews was on track to thrive at the highest level. In college, Casey was solid and dependable. He played in big games, reached a national championship, and was praised for his intelligence and fundamentals. But even at his best, he never stood out as a dominant force. That pattern continued in the NFL. Drafted in the 4th round by the Philadelphia Eagles, Matthews was immediately thrust into a starting role, largely because of injuries and roster needs. The results were rough. He struggled in coverage, lacked sideline-to-sideline speed, and was frequently targeted by opposing offenses. While he eventually settled into a rotational role and had a respectable statistical season in 2014, he never proved he belonged as a long-term starter. A brief stint with the Vikings ended due to injury, and his NFL career quietly faded after just 4 seasons. To understand why Casey's career feels disappointing, you have to look at the standard set by his family, especially his grandfather, Clay Matthews Sr. Though he played in an earlier era, Matthews Sr. was the foundation of the Matthews football legacy. He balanced an NFL career with military service, helped establish a family culture built on toughness and discipline, and raised sons who would become elite professionals. So, Casey Matthews didn't flame out spectacularly or disgrace the family name. Instead, he fell short in a quieter but more telling way. Max McCaffrey. Max McCaffrey entered football carrying one of the most respected surnames of his era. As the eldest son of Ed McCaffrey, he grew up around championship culture, elite preparation, and NFL expectations. His father wasn't just a long-tenured wide receiver. Ed was a 3-time Super Bowl champion, a Pro Bowler, and one of the toughest, most reliable receivers of the late 1990s and early 2000s. With that lineage came an assumption that Max would, at the very least, carve out a stable professional career of his own. At Duke, Max McCaffrey showed flashes of being a dependable college receiver. He was smart, technically sound, and productive enough to earn academic All-ACC honors twice. While he was never dominant, he was viewed as a polished, coachable player who could potentially develop into a depth receiver at the next level. Still, compared to his father's All-American career at Stanford, Max's college resume already hinted at a gap between legacy and reality. That gap widened in the NFL. McCaffrey went undrafted in 2016 and spent the next several years bouncing between practice squads and short-term roster stints with multiple teams. He never established himself as a consistent contributor, finishing his NFL career with only a handful of regular season appearances and minimal statistical impact. Injuries, limited explosiveness, and an inability to separate at the professional level kept him on the fringe of rosters rather than in game plans. While many players quietly fade out of the league, Max's career felt especially stark because of the contrast at home. Ed McCaffrey built a reputation on durability, physicality, and postseason excellence, becoming a key piece of Super Bowl teams in both San Francisco and Denver. He was known for delivering in big moments and for redefining what toughness at the wide receiver position looked like. In Max's case, the McCaffrey name didn't elevate him, it amplified the disappointment. He wasn't just another undrafted receiver who failed to stick. He was the son of a Super Bowl champion who couldn't come close to replicating that success. While his younger brother Christian would go on to become one of the best players of his generation, Max became the first example of how even elite football bloodlines offer no guarantees. Ryan Nisi. Ryan Nisi was born into one of the most intimidating legacies the NFL has ever known. As the son of Ronnie Lott, a man whose name is synonymous with fear, dominance, and championships, Nisi entered football with expectations that were almost impossible to escape. Even his name was carefully chosen. His parents gave him his mother's maiden name in hopes that he could carve out an identity separate from the Lott standard. Still, the shadow followed him everywhere. Excelling at UCLA, Nisi looked like a legitimate NFL prospect, starting 4 years for the Bruins, piling up tackles, earning All-American honors early in his college career, and flashing leadership traits that hinted he might carry the bloodline forward. Unlike his father, however, Nisi never entered the league as a star. He went undrafted in 2002 and signed with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as a long shot. His rookie season was derailed by a torn ACL, an early setback that immediately stalled any momentum. While he eventually carved out a role in Tampa Bay's dominant defense and even started games alongside Derek Brooks, Nese was never a centerpiece. He became a dependable linebacker and special teams contributor, winning a Super Bowl with the Buccaneers, but his career was defined by steadiness rather than greatness. After brief stops with the Lions, his NFL journey ended quietly, without Pro Bowls, All-Pro honors, or league-wide recognition. Well, that contrast becomes unavoidable when you examine his father. Ronnie Lott isn't just a Hall of Famer. He is widely considered one of the greatest defensive backs in NFL history. A first-round pick, 4-time Super Bowl champion, 8-time All-Pro, and the emotional backbone of the 1980s 49ers dynasty, Lott redefined toughness and accountability on defense. His career was filled with iconic moments, including famously amputating part of his finger to avoid missing time, a symbol of his relentless commitment to winning. So, Ryan Nese kind of embarrassed the family name. Brian Grease. Brian Grease was once viewed as the heir to one of the most iconic quarterback legacies the NFL had ever produced. As the son of Bob Grease, the Hall of Fame leader of the undefeated 1972 Miami Dolphins, Brian entered football carrying a last name synonymous with championships, poise, and quarterback excellence. At the University of Michigan, he appeared worthy of that inheritance. After walking on and fighting his way into the lineup, Grease became the Wolverines' starter and capped his college career with a national championship in 1997, earning Rose Bowl MVP honors in the process. When the Denver Broncos selected him in the third round of the 1998 NFL Draft, many believed he had the pedigree, intelligence, and winning background to become the next great Grease under center. His NFL career, however, never truly justified those expectations. Although Grease earned a Super Bowl ring as a rookie backing up John Elway and later made a Pro Bowl in 2000, his time as a starter was marked by inconsistency, injuries, and frequent turnovers. He bounced from team to team, rarely holding on to a starting job for long. What made Brian Grease's career feel like a disappointment wasn't that he was bad, it was that he was ordinary. For most players, a Pro Bowl appearance and nearly a decade in the league would be considered success. For the son of Bob Grease, it felt like a letdown. So, that contrast becomes unavoidable when you look at his father. Bob Grease wasn't just a great quarterback. He was a pillar of NFL history. He led the Miami Dolphins to 3 straight Super Bowl appearances, won 2 championships, and quarterbacked the only undefeated season the league has ever seen. In the end, Brian Grease diluted his family name. Chris Sims. Chris Sims was once seen as the next chapter in one of the NFL's most respected quarterback legacies. As the son of Phil Simms, the Super Bowl 21 MVP and longtime face of the New York Giants, Chris entered football carrying a last name synonymous with championship pedigree. Growing up around the NFL, he had access, knowledge, and expectations few players ever experience. At the University of Texas, Sims showed flashes of why scouts believed he could carry that legacy forward. He led the Longhorns to a strong record, threw for over 3,200 yards in his senior season, and was named Team MVP, convincing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to select him in the third round of the 2003 NFL Draft as a potential future starter. His NFL career, however, never came close to matching the weight of his surname. Sims struggled to establish himself as a reliable quarterback, bouncing between starting opportunities and the bench. While he showed occasional resilience and late-game flashes, inconsistency, turnovers, and questionable decision-making defined most of his time on the field. His most promising stretch came in 2005, when he helped lead Tampa Bay to the playoffs, but even that season ended in disappointment. In 2006, his career was derailed by a life-threatening ruptured spleen, an injury that effectively ended any momentum he had. After that, Sims became a journeyman backup, spending brief stints with the Broncos and Titans before quietly exiting the league without ever securing a long-term role. For a quarterback carrying the Sims name, being merely serviceable wasn't enough. The standard had already been set, and it was unreachable for him. So that standard was established by his father, Phil Simms, one of the most respected quarterbacks of his generation. Phil led the Giants to 2 Super Bowl titles, delivered one of the most efficient performances in Super Bowl history, and became a symbol of consistency and championship football in New York. In the end, Chris Sims weakened his father's legacy. Let us know your thoughts in the comments section, and before you leave, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to NFL Rivals so you don't miss the next ones.